Welcome to today's story of love, life, and betrayal. For more free stories and entertainment from our channel, please hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe with notifications. Now, let's dive into Lesson Learned, a story that proves sometimes the most important lessons are learned outside the classroom. Hannah Johnson arrived at Maplewood Elementary School on Monday morning to find her classroom in complete chaos. Desks were overturned, art supplies were scattered across the floor, and someone had written, "Worst teacher ever," on her whiteboard in permanent marker. Hannah stared at the destruction, her mind racing. She'd locked her classroom carefully on Friday afternoon, just like always. The custodial staff wouldn't have done this, and students couldn't access the building over the weekend. This had to be the work of another teacher. Hannah had been teaching 4th grade at Maplewood for 3 years, and she'd always prided herself on creating an innovative, engaging classroom environment. Her students consistently scored high on standardized tests. Parents requested her specifically, and the principal had praised her creative teaching methods multiple times. But lately, Hannah had noticed that her colleague Rebecca Murphy seemed unusually interested in her lesson plans, her teaching techniques, and her classroom management strategies. Rebecca taught 3rd grade in the classroom next door, and while she'd initially been friendly and supportive when Hannah started at the school, their relationship had become increasingly strained over the past year. It had started with small things. Rebecca would borrow Hannah's laminated classroom materials and forget to return them. She'd ask detailed questions about Hannah's lesson plans and then implement similar activities in her own classroom the next day. She'd even started copying Hannah's bulletin board designs and classroom organization systems. But recently, Rebecca's behavior had escalated from annoying to suspicious. Last month, Hannah had noticed Rebecca staying late in the building, often walking past Hannah's classroom after Hannah had left for the day. When Hannah asked the custodian about it, he mentioned that Rebecca had requested a master key for security purposes and often checked on other teachers' classrooms in the evenings. Then there was the incident with the missing flash drives. Hannah had lost 3 USB drives containing lesson plans and student data over the past 2 months. Each time, the drives had disappeared from her locked desk drawer, only to turn up in random locations around the school days later, but always with the files copied or corrupted. Most recently, Hannah had discovered that several of her original teaching activities had appeared on Rebecca's classroom website, complete with detailed descriptions and photos that made it look like Rebecca had created them herself. But vandalizing Hannah's classroom was a new low, even for Rebecca. Hannah pulled out her phone and started documenting the damage. If Rebecca wanted to play games, Hannah was ready to play, but she was going to play to win. The first thing Hannah did was install a small security camera in her classroom. She disguised it as a decorative plant on her bookshelf, positioning it to capture anyone who entered the room after hours. Then she began her investigation. Hannah started paying closer attention to Rebecca's teaching methods and classroom materials. What she discovered was that Rebecca had been systematically stealing ideas from multiple teachers, not just Hannah. Rebecca's innovative Math Center activities were actually copied from the 1st grade teacher's Pinterest board. Her creative writing prompts were taken directly from the 5th grade teacher's published lesson plans. Even her classroom organization system was a replica of the kindergarten teacher's setup. Rebecca Murphy wasn't a creative educator. She was a professional idea thief who had built her entire teaching reputation on stolen content. But Hannah's biggest discovery came when she found Rebecca's computer logged into the school's shared drive during lunch period. Rebecca had forgotten to log out, and Hannah could see that she'd been accessing and downloading lesson plans from teachers across the entire district. Rebecca had folders full of stolen content, organized by subject and grade level, along with detailed notes about how to implement each teacher's methods without giving them credit. Hannah realized that Rebecca wasn't just targeting her, she was running an elaborate plagiarism operation that affected dozens of teachers. But instead of reporting Rebecca immediately, Hannah decided to set a trap. Hannah created a fake lesson plan for a revolutionary new teaching method she called interactive historical immersion. The plan described an elaborate activity where students would dress up as historical figures and debate current events from their character's perspective. The lesson plan was intentionally flawed and would be a disaster if actually implemented, but Hannah wrote it in a way that made it sound innovative and impressive to someone who didn't understand the underlying educational principles. She saved the fake plan in a prominent location on her computer, mentioned it loudly during conversations in the teacher's lounge, and even left printed copies accidentally on the copy machine. Sure enough, within a week, Hannah noticed Rebecca preparing costumes and props for what looked suspiciously like Hannah's fake historical immersion activity. Hannah smiled as she watched Rebecca excitedly explain her new innovative teaching method to other faculty members during their weekly meeting. "I'm calling it interactive historical immersion," Rebecca announced proudly. "Students will dress as historical figures and debate modern issues from their character's perspective. It's going to revolutionize how we teach social studies." The other teachers looked impressed, and the principal asked Rebecca to present the activity at the next district-wide faculty development day. Hannah could barely contain her excitement. Rebecca had just volunteered to publicly demonstrate a teaching method that was designed to fail spectacularly. But Hannah wasn't done yet. Over the next 2 weeks, Hannah planted several more fake lesson plans and classroom management techniques for Rebecca to discover. Each one was more elaborate and more doomed to failure than the last. There was the silent learning revolution, a classroom management technique that required students to communicate only through interpretive dance, the mathematical music theory integration, teaching math concepts through song composition, despite Hannah knowing that Rebecca was tone deaf, and the collaborative chaos method, a group work strategy that was guaranteed to result in complete classroom disorder. Rebecca eagerly adopted each technique, apparently trusting Hannah's reputation for innovation without bothering to think critically about whether the methods actually made sense. Meanwhile, Hannah's security camera had captured Rebecca breaking into her classroom 3 more times, copying materials, and even attempting to sabotage Hannah's actual lesson plans by changing important details. Hannah documented everything, building a comprehensive case against Rebecca's theft and sabotage. But she waited to take action until after Rebecca's presentation at the District Faculty Development Day. The district meeting was held at the Maplewood Auditorium, with over 200 teachers and administrators from across the school district in attendance. Rebecca had been scheduled to present her interactive historical immersion method as an example of innovative classroom practices. Hannah arrived early and sat in the back row, trying to look supportive while internally preparing for the show. Rebecca took the stage confidently, dressed professionally, and carrying a folder full of notes that Hannah knew were copied from her fake lesson plan. "Today, I want to share with you a revolutionary teaching method that I've developed," Rebecca began. Interactive historical immersion represents a new way of engaging students with social studies content. Hannah watched as Rebecca explained the activity in detail, describing how students would research historical figures and then debate modern political issues from their character's perspective. Several teachers in the audience looked confused. One raised her hand. "Rebecca, I'm not sure I understand how this would work practically. Are you having elementary students debate complex political issues?" "Well, yes," Rebecca replied, consulting her notes. "The idea is that they'll gain a deeper understanding of historical perspectives by applying them to contemporary situations. Another teacher spoke up, "But don't you think that might be developmentally inappropriate for third graders? Most of them don't have the background knowledge to understand either the historical context or the modern issues." Rebecca looked flustered. "Well, the lesson plan says it works for all grade levels." "Whose lesson plan?" asked Dr. Patricia Williams, the district curriculum coordinator. "Because this doesn't sound like it aligns with our age-appropriate teaching standards." Rebecca's confidence was visibly cracking. I developed this method myself, based on my observations of student engagement patterns." That's when Hannah decided to make her move. She stood up from her seat in the back row and addressed the room. "I'm sorry to interrupt, but I think there's been some confusion about this teaching method." All eyes turned to Hannah, and Rebecca went pale. "You see," Hannah continued, "interactive historical immersion isn't actually a real teaching method. I created it as a test because I suspected that someone was stealing my lesson plans and teaching materials." The auditorium erupted in murmurs as teachers realized what Hannah was suggesting. "Rebecca," Hannah said, looking directly at her colleague, "when did you say you developed this method?" Last month," Rebecca stammered. "That's interesting," Hannah replied, "because I created this fake lesson plan 3 weeks ago and left it where I knew you would find it when you broke into my classroom." The murmurs turned into gasps. Dr. Williams stood up from her seat in the front row. "Are you accusing Ms. Murphy of theft and breaking and entering?" "I'm not accusing her," Hannah said calmly. "I'm providing evidence." Hannah pulled out her tablet and connected it to the auditorium's presentation system. The security footage from her classroom began playing on the large screen, showing Rebecca clearly entering Hannah's room after hours, rifling through her desk and copying materials. The footage was time-stamped and showed multiple incidents over several weeks. "This is just the beginning," Hannah continued. "Rebecca has been stealing lesson plans and teaching materials not just from me, but from teachers across the entire district." Hannah clicked to her next slide, which showed screenshots of Rebecca's computer folders full of stolen lesson plans, organized by teacher name and school. She's been accessing the district's shared drive to download and copy other teachers' work, then presenting it as her own original content. The auditorium was now completely silent, except for the sound of administrators frantically taking notes. But Hannah had saved the best for last. "The most ironic part," Hannah said with a slight smile, "is that Rebecca volunteered to present this fake teaching method at today's meeting. She was so confident in her ability to steal and present other people's work that she didn't bother to evaluate whether the method actually made educational sense." Dr. Williams looked directly at Rebecca, who was now visibly shaking on the stage. "Miss Murphy, do you have any response to these allegations?" Rebecca looked around the auditorium at 200 pairs of eyes staring at her, all waiting for an explanation. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. Finally, she grabbed her materials and fled from the auditorium, leaving behind a room full of shocked educators and administrators. The aftermath of Hannah's presentation was swift and comprehensive. An investigation was launched into Rebecca's theft of intellectual property, and she was suspended pending the outcome. When investigators examined Rebecca's computer and classroom materials, they found evidence of systematic plagiarism spanning her entire 3-year career at Maplewood Elementary. Rebecca had stolen lesson plans, classroom management techniques, bulletin board designs, and even parent communication templates from dozens of teachers across multiple schools. But the investigation revealed something that shocked everyone, including Hannah. Rebecca Murphy wasn't actually a certified teacher. She had been using a fake teaching certificate and fraudulent transcripts to get hired at schools across the district. Her real background was in administrative assistance, and she had no formal education training whatsoever. Rebecca had been faking her entire teaching career, stealing other teachers' expertise to cover for her lack of knowledge and qualifications. That explains why she never created original content. Dr. Williams told Hannah during a follow-up meeting she didn't have the educational background to develop her own teaching methods, so she had to steal from people who actually knew what they were doing. The revelation put Rebecca's behavior in a completely different light. She hadn't just been lazy or unethical, she had been desperately trying to maintain a career she was completely unqualified for. Hannah almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Rebecca was immediately terminated and faced criminal charges for fraud and identity theft. The district implemented new background check procedures to prevent similar situations in the future. But the most satisfying outcome for Hannah was the recognition she received from her fellow teachers. When the investigation revealed the extent of Rebecca's theft, it became clear just how innovative and creative Hannah's original teaching methods really were. Her work had been so impressive that Rebecca had built an entire fake career around stealing it. Hannah was invited to present her actual teaching methods at education conferences, and she received a district-wide award for innovation in elementary education. She also became something of a legend among her colleagues for her strategic takedown of the fake teacher. "I still can't believe you created fake lesson plans to catch her," said Maria Santos, the kindergarten teacher, during lunch in the teacher's lounge. "That was brilliant. The best part was watching her volunteer to present your fake method in front of the entire district," added James Park, the fifth-grade teacher. She was so confident in her theft that she didn't realize she was walking into a trap. Hannah smiled. "I learned a long time ago that the best way to deal with cheaters is to give them enough rope to hang themselves." 6 months later, Hannah was promoted to curriculum coordinator for the district, a position that allowed her to share her teaching innovations with educators across the region. Her first initiative was developing a system for teachers to protect and share their intellectual property safely, ensuring that creative educators would be credited for their work while preventing future plagiarism. Hannah also started a mentorship program for new teachers, providing them with the support and resources they needed to develop their own teaching expertise, rather than resorting to theft. The irony, Hannah reflected during her first curriculum coordinator meeting, is that if Rebecca had just asked for help developing her teaching skills, I would have been happy to mentor her. Instead, she chose theft and sabotage, which ultimately destroyed the career she was trying to protect. The experience taught Hannah valuable lessons about professional integrity, the importance of protecting intellectual property, and the power of strategic thinking in solving workplace conflicts. But most importantly, it reinforced her belief that education was about more than just teaching academic subjects. It was about modeling ethics, honesty, and problem-solving for the next generation. Hannah kept one of Rebecca's failed fake lesson plans framed in her office as a reminder that sometimes the best revenge is simply allowing people to demonstrate their own incompetence in front of their peers. And whenever new teachers asked Hannah for advice about dealing with difficult colleagues, she would smile and say, "Sometimes the best defense is a good offense, and sometimes the most effective weapon is the truth." The teacher's lounge, war had ended with a decisive victory for creativity, integrity, and strategic thinking, and Hannah Johnson had proven that you should never underestimate the resourcefulness of a motivated educator. Thanks for listening to today's story of love, life, and betrayal. For more free stories and entertainment from our channel, please hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe with notifications.